Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Today we are drawing Bishop and we are going to be talking a little bit about backgrounds and stuff like this because we've got a bit of a hefty one on our hands here. I've got a reasonably substantial background to do here. That's kind of most of what's going to be going on here because realistically speaking Bishop isn't the most difficult character in the world to draw. Because his costume is fairly simple. It's mostly just the kind of basic X-Men blue and yellow, but with kind of very little variance on that. It's mostly just the kind of the typical stuff, and I'm not going to be tinkering with his design too much. I might maybe make a few minor adjustments here and there just to get a little bit more going on in certain areas. But yeah, largely the design is going to be pretty much exactly the same. Most of what we're going to be doing here is going to be the background, so I'm going to do everything in my power to make this reasonably quick, but you know, there's a lot to do here. So there's some stuff which might end up on the cutting room floor. But anyways, I will roll the intro and then I'll show you what I've got. But yeah, anyways. So yeah, this is what we're looking at. It's a lot, and as I said, there's parts of this which might end up on the cutting room floor. So, realistically speaking, here again, Bishop has a little bit of a weird pose here. That's mostly to try and mitigate the amount of space on screen. We're trying to maximize the amount of him there is in frame, while minimizing the amount of actual space is covering along something along those lines. I forget exactly what my thought process was, but yeah. So there's stuff like the Sentinel head kind of sinking into the what's going to be like black sand at the bottom here, and there's all obviously the burnt out buildings in the background. There's some like bits of rebar sticking out of this concrete along here, cracked glass, all this stuff. And then the spotlights, smoke, all the kind of typical stuff, all these kind of, as I say, burnt out buildings in the background, which should do enough to kind of sell that. I'm probably going to give it like a purpley kind of sky, something like that, and then maybe add some like smog to the top, that kind of whittles down, something like that. But yeah, realistically speaking, the background is going to be time consuming because a lot of this stuff, I don't normally do like environments all that much. Backgrounds aren't normally something which I dedicate a lot of time to. Even in the prior video, there wasn't a background at all, really. There's a background color. That's normally what I do for the most part, is I do a background color. And I don't kind of dedicate more to it than that. But yeah, so... Excuse me. So here, this is a bit of a diversion from what I'd normally do. And yeah, obviously the Sentinel head is kind of your classic Sentinel, but I'll probably be making adjustments to that because obviously that's kind of slapped together in 5 seconds. That's what most of this background is for now. And again, as I say, there's parts of this which maybe are a little much, like all the kind of detailed burnt out buildings here might be too much. I might try to shrink that down. But yeah, so if we kind of take a closer look at what we got with Bishop here, I'm going to turn off the background for a second so that I can look at Bishop, because yeah, Bishop is still the focus of this. So I did stuff like trying to give him a bit of an interesting expression. So he's got a bit of this kind of like half grimace going on while he's kind of charging up his energy here. And then he's got his big gun. But he's still got 2 holsters. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, because he does technically have 2 guns, I think. Even though in the animated series you only ever saw this kind of weird long shotgun thing that he has. And that is all I'm giving him for now, is this one sat over his shoulder. But I have made him quite beefy. Because he should be beefy, and I've also given him his mullet because I prefer Bishop with the mullet. it feels more in character to me of the kind of weird kind of 80s dark future, which is just the Terminator. And then, you know, having him be with his giant mullet, that kind of feels appropriate to me. But, yeah. So, when it came to this energy here, I was kind of tinkering around with it for ages, trying to figure out whether or not it was going to be fiery or kind of plasma-y, and I kind of, even though it should probably be plasma-y, I don't really know how to do the plasma-y thing. It's not even that I don't know how to do it, it's just that I'm not amazing at it. So I instead decided to make it fiery, but with a defined inner edge. So that should work within reason of where the inner part would be a lighter color than the edge would probably have a dark kind of purpley color. But yeah, so then when it comes to all the background stuff, this is going to be probably where a lot of our time is going to be sunk, is into doing a lot of these background elements. But stuff like drawing the sand actually isn't that hard. Realistically speaking, it's just you kind of layer it up is normally how I do it. I kind of start from the smaller parts and then leave an open edge. Like say for example here, I would have gone like this, then left the open edge there, then just done another little, basically the exact same thing, and then tuck into that open edge, but then leave the open part there, then do the same thing here, so on and so forth, and that's how you kind of layer that up. But what I might do is I might make like kind of bigger dunes out there, and then kind of mask some of these kind of rough looking edges down here of the buildings, and that might look a little better, I think. Yeah, that might kind of be a little bit more interesting looking. I might go for some kind of hard black on the I think the buildings here are going to be probably black. I'm probably not going to bother doing anything kind of like detailing wise with them. That's kind of why this burnt out kind of husk is here, just so that I can kind of do that for that. And yeah, so it's the same sort of deal with this sand. I might just, yeah, like kind of layer it up out there and like kind of bigger dunes, and then those ones might be like a kind of darker color. They might be black, they might just be black, so they sort of like blend into the buildings a little bit. That might look a little bit more interesting. The kind of further out ones are a little bit darker. They're maybe a full black color, something like that. Yeah, so obviously I've done the same thing that I normally do, which is to say that I've left the little X patches as simple, just because it will save me some. It just saves me time during the base sketch, and I realize that I haven't opened up my reference yet, so I'm doing that now. So yeah. Right, I suppose there's no point in delaying much further, because I mean we're already like nearly 10 minutes in. I've done my customary 10 minutes of opening rambling. So yeah, I suppose I'll probably merge the background details into this, because that will probably just be time efficient, is to do all of the details, including the background now, which means that, yeah, a lot of those kind of bits which are going to be the full black are probably going to be merged into this section as well, because there's no point in doing those later, may as well just do them now. But yeah, anyways, I suppose there's no point in delaying, so I will begin. I'll do the details on Bishop. I'm a big fan of Bishop. Bishop's cool. And yeah, good God, look at the size of that bicep. I may need to diminish that or increase this one. I think maybe I should increase this bicep more to just really emphasize just how enormous his arms are. But anyways, yes, I will begin. I'll maybe add some slight more detailing to the costume, because as you can see, it's really just kind of this, and that's it. It's just the kind of stripe, and that's about it. I've not really done much more than that, so I might maybe just apply some like little seams around the place, something like that, just to give it a little bit more going on. Same with the boots, because the boots don't have anything going on either. But yeah, anyways, I'll begin, and then I'll be back to talk about the colors. So yeah, anyways. Okay, so after spending a copious amount of time, I have the general idea of the background done, as well as obviously my general details done. So, yeah, I managed to, I feel like, polish up the Sentinel head a little bit, so it doesn't look quite as clunky as it did before. Looks a little better now, looks a little bit more geometrical, which is of course how it should look. And I'm realizing there's actually a detail which I forgot to include here, which is that. But now that's there, that's not done. But yeah, so there's obviously the smoke and then the spotlights. I'll do those later. That can be done like literally right at the end, because all I have to do is just create an area like that. It's literally just like get the polygonal lasso, do this, and there's a spotlight. So that's all there is to it. It's that simple to do a spotlight, and then the smoke, that'll just be a brush. So I'll probably do that during my painted shading, which will obviously be pretty soon, because this section is the colors, and then after this is the painted shading. So yeah, so I decided to exempt a few details from the background, such as the kind of burnt out building, because I just figured it'd be easier to save some time. So I instead decided to apply a little bit more detailing to this little piece of building that sat there instead. And then yeah, so I obviously decided to include this is like some of the sand that's kind of built up over there towards the bottom of the buildings. And then this is obviously kind of also sand, but it's getting a little darker because it's towards the back there. But I didn't want to go too crazy on that, because that'll be detailed shading anyways. Because I'm not going to bother applying, or that'll be painted shading, because I'm not going to bother applying detailed shading to the background, because I don't normally do that, because it's just it just saves time to not do that. Plus it looks a little bit more natural whenever it's just the painted shading. Detailed shading on the background looks a little too accurate. So yeah, I tend to not do that. I tend to leave it whenever it comes down to that. But yeah, a lot of the background details from here shouldn't take too long, because there's only the one colour on the ground, there's the two colours on the head, then there's the colour of the concrete, and that's about it. There. And then that's all that background stuff. So yeah, the background is, for all intents and purposes, basically finished. Now, you might have noticed I was applying these tiny little spokes off here, and that is because I still wanted to include the idea of the rebar in there, realizing now that I forgot to do it over here. I just wanted to include the idea of the rebar without having to do it in a huge amount of detail like I would have doing the burnt out building over there. So I decided to just do it like this, where you can sort of see these kind of bendy little bits of metal coming out of the building like that, and there, that's your kind of impression of the rebar. It's obviously it's in the distance, and likely the sky will kind of hide this a little bit, so it's nothing too crazy, but it applies the impression of the buildings being more damaged than they are, or than they would otherwise appear to be from here. So it does a little bit of work for us, I think. You know, perhaps I should put some more holes in the building, but I might in the buildings, like a big hole like there or something like that. But you know, I'll think about that. I'll think about that as I'm going. But yeah. Anyways, so I don't want to dilly-dally too much, because this is already going to be a very long one. I can tell already, because it's 2.5 hours and I've only just finished the details. So I don't want to waste too much time. So I'm going to get on with the colors, and then I'll be back to talk a little bit more about the painted shading, which I think I will probably have a little bit more to talk about. There's a few interesting things I want to try with the painted shading here, which might work, might not work, but largely I'm not going to be going like too crazy, but it's just some things which I think might be interesting to look at, which might look a little bit more interesting depending on how I do them. So we shall see. We shall see how that works. I am optimistic, but not certain. But yeah, anyways, I'll carry on. Okay, that's our colours, as well as a few of the extra accoutrements and all that stuff I decided to throw in. So I did all the background colours and everything, and I also did our spotlights, which are a little messier than I might have normally done them, but it'll work, it's fine. The texture will probably do a little bit of work on them, and I did the smog in the sky as well, so the sky kind of blends a little bit into the buildings. More than it did before anyways. So yeah, now we're onto the painted shading, where I'm going to probably do a lot of the kind of major stuff, especially on the background bits, especially on stuff like the Sentinel head and all that stuff. The color scheme I was doing with the Sentinel head is the color scheme from the animated series, if you're curious, of where it's got the kind of reddy edges, and then it's got the kind of weird little pink face. That's more of what I was going for there, where it's not strictly the kind of normal color scheme, which would be a more human, a more human skin tone as opposed to the bright pink, or a more kind of like peachy color or something like that, and then the kind of red area would be pink, would be like a purpley pink. But yeah, instead it's a pinky red, because that's the kind of color scheme it has in the animated series. If memory serves, at least. And then, or yeah, as far as my reference was concerned. But yeah, I actually was considering applying like some outer glow to Bishop's energy, but that was kind of not working exactly how I wanted to. Mostly because I did the edge and the inside as two separate layers, so that's the problem there. So I just kind of decided to instead just stick with the inner glow on the lighter color. So yeah, that's all that. Now there is an interesting thing which I want to try and do, which is an effect you sometimes see off of Bishop, which is the kind of the idea that the inside of his skin is also getting this kind of like purpley energy coursing through it, and I'm going to try and get that in this arm. I'm going to try and work some of that pink in through this arm and see if I can get that effect. We'll see what I can manage. I might not stick with it, I might leave it as is, because obviously this arm isn't going to have that, his face isn't going to have that, so we'll see what I do with that. I might not like how it comes out, so I might actually end up switching. I might just end up keeping this arm with the same shading as the rest of him, but if things go well, you'll see a kind of like pinky sort of glow working up his arm, provided it works. Provided it works, that's the crucial element of this. But yeah, once we're done with this, the rest of this is gonna go a lot quicker, because all we've got to do after the painted shading is just the detailed shading, and that's only on Bishop. I don't have to worry about that in the background or anything like that. I'm also going to need to apply a little shadow underneath his legs, but I can straight up just do that with this tool like that. And there, I'll do that in like during this section, because it'll only take like 5 seconds, but I'll do it probably at the end, because it doesn't require any of my current brushes or anything like that, so I'll just work with it that way. But anyways, I won't dilly-dally. I will just carry on, and I'll do this painted shading, then I'll be back to the detailed shading, at which point we'll be nearly done. So yeah, anyways. Alrighty, so that is our painted shading done, including the background. So, I also threw in the little shadow down here, just because that is a necessary feature. So, yeah, that's kind of most of us done. So I've just got to do the detailed shading and the light line, which I will do in this upcoming section. So I don't remember if there was anything else I needed to kind of cover here briefly. There is a bit of a kind of, I don't know if you might know what I'm referring to when I say this, but there's a sort of like kind of generic digital art look to this, sort of kind of generic softness to it, which I'm not kind of a big fan of, but that is something that will be kind of worked out with the gradient maps and the texture. Because you can see on like a lot of this stuff, there's just this kind of like sort of vague softness to everything. Which is typically a problem you get whenever the lighting is like dead in center, which is kind of what I wanted, because I wanted to do like a proper rim light around the edge of Bishop here, just around the edges of his shoulders basically, and maybe a little bit here. So yeah, like there's a kind of a central light kind of hitting the front of it more or less, and that's where all the light is coming from around here. But it's sort of kind of got this sort of kind of generic look to it, so I don't know. Again, that's something that the gradient maps will work with, that will help in that section at the end. But yeah, I suppose without further ado, I'll just carry on. Oh yeah, I did do the kind of like slightly glow on, like the slight inner glow on the arm. I don't know how much I like it, but I'm leaving it because I don't think there's any reason to change it. I don't think there's any reason to kind of screw around with it. I think it's fine as is. But yeah. Anyways, I think that's enough. That's enough jibber jabbering for now. I think it's probably fine for me to kind of carry on. Yeah. I mean, the kind of glow on the arm isn't the greatest thing in the world. I think that's probably something which I would have needed to set up a little earlier. And it's also one of those things where you should probably be able to see like the veins and stuff like that as well. If there's going to be this kind of glow, sort of like interior glow, you would normally be able to see like the veins and stuff like that. So that'd be a texture or something I'd need to have applied, or something along those lines. But yeah. Anyways, I will carry on, and then I will do gradient maps and textures and all that stuff and wrap up. So yeah. Anyways. Okay, so that is all of our stuff done. That's our detailed shading done, and that's our light lighting, and that's our light line done. I was considering doing something with like a colorful light line or something like that, but I kind of chose not to do that. But as you can see, I did do the kind of full shoulder light line, the full rim light around the shoulders, and then it kind of tapers off along this side, then gets thicker on this side. So that was kind of the idea I wanted to go for, and I managed to do it. But yeah, so now I got to do the gradient maps. So for this, what do I want to do color-wise for this? I'm going to want it to be dark. I'm going to want it to have a bit of a redder tone to it. So I'm going to maybe make this one purple, make it a very dark purple, maybe even a little darker than that. About there. Make this one red, but maybe a slightly pinkier red. That about there, because we're probably going to be going for like basically Terminator colors here, so make it kind of dark. Even for a mid-tone that should be dark, that's good. The sky has mostly disappeared. How's that looking on overlay? You can barely see the sky, which is what I want. So let's turn it to a soft light and turn that down to 7. Let's see how it looks in 60%. Thinking 65 might work for us. 65% looks alright. Make another one of those, then make it a luminosity layer. So preserve some of those original colors. And that 20%. Because especially like the blue and the yellow are obviously going to get kind of destroyed by the gradient maps here if I'm not careful about how I do this. So let's turn that color burn down to 5%. Still pretty dark. That works for me. So, right. That's those done. I now need to grab my texture and then throw that over top. So, let's have a look and see how this works. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with this. I would say that maybe the what do you call it? The energy on his hands may be a little dull. So I don't know if there's anything I can really do about that. There's nothing that's springing to mind as an idea here, really. Could I probably keep this subtle? Put it down to 20%, I think. The texture, because it will sort of absorb everything. If I'm not careful. How does that look on him? It brightens up his face, which is good. Brightens up. It does slightly brighten up the energy. And the arm, I suppose, as well. Something which I like at least is that it's still clear, even at this point, that you can see the energy in the arm. Even though that's something which I was kind of like, sort of iffy about, is that you can still see the kind of energy in his arm, which is nice, I suppose. It does kind of look like this spotlight's coming out of his hand. A little bit. Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. It's not bothering me too much. I mean, I could move up the spotlights if I really wanted to, but I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think, to be honest, I think I'm mostly fine with all of this. Even though I'm not huge on the background, I don't actually love the background all that much. I think this is an interesting one anyways. I think it's more interesting that I managed to get it done in, well, shorter than the last few of these anyways. For some reason the landscape ones are very time consuming, because this is what, 4 hours 40 minutes is already what I'm set at here. But yeah, I think this was alright. I think this was a fun one. I think Bishop is a fun character to draw. Well, I don't normally draw all that often. I think that's just the same with most of the X-Men characters. Almost all the X-Men characters have good designs. They're fun to draw. X-Men are good. But yeah. Yeah, I don't think I need to do a copiously long outro here. Because again, as I say, we're already 4 hours and 40 minutes. Were these shorter, it would actually still be bright whenever these were done. Because, you know, it only just got dark. So, I mean, this is the thing. Were these drawings a little bit shorter, then I could it could actually still be bright outside whenever I finish one of these. But yeah, that's chances are low of that happening anytime soon. But yeah, anyways, I will say my outro and I'll say goodbye. So, if you like the video, do whatever it is that you normally do, whether that be liking it or not. I would of course prefer if you liked it, but I can't make you do that, so I'm not going to try. But yeah, anyways, you know the deal there. If you want to subscribe, it's the same story. You can, you know, do it if you want, but I'm not going to make you. You know where the subscribe button is. You presumably watched the YouTube video before. And if you've got any suggestions for what you'd like to see me draw in the future, there's a comment section. Be polite. I will see the stuff if you write in there. But your tone will greatly dictate how I choose to respond, and or if I even bother to look at it. So, yeah. If you've got a suggestion, leave it in the comments, be polite. And if you would like to watch the next video, I'll see you or if you choose to watch the next video, I will see you next time. So with all that said, I'll say goodbye and I'll leave you. So, bye-bye.